What's up guys, Asian here again with another sort of theory crafting video. First things first, apologies for the lack of an introduction and the general sort of, I guess lack of quality is probably the best way to describe this. I am still on winter break, so I am still playing off of my laptop. So if you hear fans in the background, that's probably my laptop being incredibly loud because it's very hot while it's playing ESO. So apologies for all of the poor quality compared to prior videos where I was recording on my desktop. It's probably going to be the case for the next 2 or 3 weeks or so. So if any videos come out between now and the next 2 or 3 weeks, expect about the same level of quality here. I will try my best to work with what I got. So for example, I am recording on the headphone mic that I'm running right now, and so on. So apologies for any sort of visual and audio quality sort of downgrades during winter break. But this particular video is a very interesting one because a user has managed to find out something pretty interesting about the Nightblade passive catalyst and Minor Heroism poisons. So for those of you guys who are not aware, the passive known as I guess catalyst is under the Nightblade skill line, under Siphonings, the first passive you unlock. So after you drink a potion, you gain 20 ultimate. Now the wording says potion, so how do poisons affect catalyst? Well, a user on Discord managed to figure out that if you use a poison that gives you Minor Heroism, it actually will proc the catalyst passive, granting you 20 ultimate. And we also found out that there is a cooldown on Catalyst of 5 seconds. Obviously, if you were using it as is, if you were just drinking potions, you can't have a potion cooldown of 5 seconds or fewer, so you wouldn't really notice the cooldown. But if you were to proc a poison, a heroism poison, and then drink a potion within the 5 seconds, you actually will only get 20 ultimate, you won't get 40 ultimate. So there's an internal cooldown on Catalyst of 5 seconds. That's about the same as the cooldown for most usable items except for potions and certain collectibles. So it actually makes sense that there is an internal cooldown on Catalyst of 5 seconds or so. But just to kind of make things completely, I guess, thorough, I also decided to kind of take a look at other poisons that also provide any sort of positive effects. So the working theory that I was wondering about was whether this is just due to Minor Heroism, considering that Minor Heroism on potions and poisons are fairly new, and maybe Zos just did an oopsies and didn't code it correctly, or if this was a long-standing bug where any poison with any beneficial effect that is applied to you would count as a potion because it applies a positive effect to you. And then of course we want to compare this. Well, you're getting more ultimate off, which means you're going to be getting more incapacitating strikes off. The first natural conclusion that we went to was, well, what if you're running War Machine? Because now with War Machine you're getting off more ultimates, which means you might be able to get higher Major Slayer uptime, not just for yourself, but for 2 other people as well. Would this be able to replace Lakestes potentially if you're running these heroism poisons I should say. Now, one of the things with the heroism poisons that we figured out pretty early on was the fact that they're actually not that strong. So let me spell poisons correctly. So this is the poison that you would be running if you were to be using this sort of Minor Heroism poison. You'll notice here that we do manage to get poison damage in, so we do get the Double Ravage Health poison in here. Actually, it is technically the gradual increase health, but as you see as a poison, it does deal poison damage. And then we have the Minor Heroism there. I did run through a couple of iterations just to kind of see if there were any other poisons that would be better, deal more damage for example, but this is the only poison that we could come up with that would be able to deal any sort of damage. Obviously we're going to be comparing it to the traditional Double Ravage Health poisons that we typically use, which as you can see deal quite a bit of additional damage. So the working theory is, or I should say the question is, does the extra ultimate that you get from running Minor Heroism along with the Catalyst passive proccing a lot more often, does that offset the additional poison damage that Double Ravage Health poisons do? Then of course I wanted to make sure that it was just Minor Heroism and not any other sort of positive bonus, so I just made a Ravage Health poison here that gives me Minor Brutality. So the first things first, just to give a proof of concept, We're going to be using Deadly Cloak here, because that won't increase my ultimate naturally through light attacks and heavy attacks, and if it does proc a poison, then we will be able to see it reflected under the ultimate line. So I have 60 ultimate right now, so if the poison does proc, it'll bump me up to 80. Well, hopefully it procs. Again, it's not a very high chance of proccing. Okay, so right there it did happen to proc. However, it only procced the Minor Heroism portion of the poison. It didn't actually proc the actual 20%, I should say 20 ultimate that we get from Catalyst. So Deadly Cloak apparently, even though it does proc the poison, won't give us the Catalyst. So what about light attacks? Let's see if we can get the poison to proc. If we see a giant jump in our ultimate, that's when we know that it is procced. There we go. It procced, and we jumped from about 91 ultimate up to about 111 ultimate right away. So, as we can see here, if you get the poison to proc from a weapon ability, it doesn't seem like it's going to increase your ultimate. But if it happens to proc off a light attack, then it will increase your ultimate by that 20 ultimate that you get from Catalyst. An interesting development, but something still to be mindful of. Honestly, if you are in a situation where you are running these poisons, you're probably proccing them off light attacks anyway, so this is just sort of a the minutia behind kind of how you're getting the poisons to proc. Now to demonstrate that there is a cooldown, so we're going to get it to proc first. Okay, so it procced. You can see here I used a potion, and it did not increase even further. So there is an internal cooldown for the Catalyst passive of about 5 seconds or so. Let's go ahead and kill the dummy here. So that is the Heroism potion. So we can see here that it does proc the Catalyst passive. But now, what about the Minor Brutality poison? Will this proc Catalyst? Well, let's go ahead and find out. So we're at 220 ultimate here, and we will be using light attacks. Let's see if it procs at all. Okay, so there it just procced, but we did not get the Catalyst passive to proc. So we did proc the poison, but we didn't proc the Catalyst passive with our Minor Brutality poisons. So it does seem to be specific to the Minor Heroism poisons here. And now on to the big question, what does this mean for our overall DPS? Well, you can see here I've already done 2 parses. Which one is which, you might ask? The first parse that I did was with the Double Ravage Health poisons here. And you can see here that when we take their combined DPS, they deal about 2700 DPS. So that's actually quite a bit of DPS. Probably why we're using Double Ravage Health poisons to begin with, because they just do that much damage there. And of course we also are getting some poisoned procs out of it, so we are proccing the status effect poison. It's a little bit hard to pick out exactly which one of the poison damage ticks are from our Ravage Health poisons, and which ones are from poison injection and other sources of poison damage, so we'll just kind of ignore that. But just do keep in mind that Double Ravage Health poisons do have double the chance of proccing the poison status effect, because you have 2 ticks of poison damage rather than just the 1 tick that we get from the Minor Heroism potion. So this is run with this was run with Reliquin and War Machine on the front bar here. So our major Slayer uptime here was 44%, so pretty high. Next we have the Minor Heroism poison. So we can see here we pulled a little bit lower, 75.5 compared to the 77.5 up ahead. So we lost 2k DPS. The actual damage that we get from the poisons, as you can imagine, is significantly lower, 856 compared to about 2700, so we're losing just shy of 1900 DPS. But of course, we're also getting more Major Slayer uptime of 52% here. Now we have 15 procs here of Major Slayer compared to over here where we have 12 procs. Now part of this is because of the way that I have my bars set up. So I have War Machine on the front bar, and there's obviously a very good chance that the poisons might proc on the back bar, or I might get my ultimate up on the back bar, but I want to finish up my back bar rotation before I decide to go ahead and run my go on my front bar and run Incapacitating Strike. So this can be higher. Based on conversations that I've had, specifically with the people who have been testing this out, they've managed to get the Major Slayer buff time up on a solo parse up to around 60% or so. So you could see potentially between a 10 to 15% increase in your Major Slayer uptime with the Minor Heroism proc. However, if you go ahead and run the mathematics behind it, this particularly, if I get 8% more Major Slayer uptime compared to what I had prior, for 44%, I only get an increase of 1% compared to running the 44% Major Slayer. So not a lot. So 1% DPS compared to losing 2k from poisons, not that much. So 1% here would only be about 750 additional DPS. So we're already off by 1250. But if we were to, let's say we managed to get up to 60%, give you a little bit more optimistic. Maybe I managed to time my ultimate better or whatever. That's still only a 2% increase. So while we're seeing a little bit less of a loss, it's still going to be an overall DPS loss. However, you do have to take into consideration the fact that by using these Minor Heroism poisons, you're going to be taking a slight DPS hit, but you're going to be getting better Major Slayer uptime. Now, of course, Major Slayer, most people are getting it through Lachesis, and if you're running two synergies, you should be able to get very high Major Slayer uptimes already. In fact, if you're only running one synergy, you could, in theory, already get 75% uptime in Major Slayer. So is this a strategy worth running in trials? For me, personally, I'd say probably not. It's an interesting sort of thing to take into consideration, perhaps. But ultimately, if you have 3 DPS running like Kestis, they're probably going to get higher Major Slayer uptime, and then, as a result, higher DPS as well. War Machine, in general, doesn't really have very strong bonuses. It has max stamina and weapon damage, compared to like Kestis, which has weapon crit and weapon damage. So it's a little bit stronger that way compared to War Machine. You also do get one additional armor bonus, essentially, with the perfected version of Lachesis. So I would say, while this is an interesting phenomena, I would still say stick with Lachesis if you're just looking to maximize your overall DPS. That concludes this video. Hopefully you guys found this informative. Regular videos will start coming out starting after the new year, so in 2020, January 3rd or 4th, there will be some more videos. If you guys are interested in taking a look at what topics I'll be covering, go ahead and jump over to the communities tab, where I have, I believe, 4 or 5 topics that I want to cover in the new year. The new PTS cycle should be coming out in mid to early January, so once we get that PTS cycle going, expect to see videos based on what we get from the patch notes there. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Hope you guys had a happy holidays, and I will see you guys in the new year.